Thank you for joining us to learn more about learning styles today. This will allow you to maximize your efforts and learning by leveraging strategies that work with your learning style and not against it. What is a learning style? It is a preferred way or orientation of learning that relies on how a person processes information best. People have the capability of learning through other modes and learning styles, but are often stronger in one or two modes than all of them. So it can be a combination of styles, but it is not the only way that we can learn. So if you are predominant in one learning style, that does not mean that you can't learn in any of the other learning styles. It just means that you have a preference, and it might be easier for you to learn out of that style. For the duration of this presentation, we are going to rely on the VARK learning styles to guide our discussion. The VARK learning styles consist of visual, which relies on visual depictions of information and learning cues; auditory, which prefers heard or spoken information; reading or writing styles as a learning style prefers information to be conveyed through words; and kinesthetic learning relies on learning information through practice, examples, or hands-on experience. Again, folks can be multimodal in their learning styles, which just means that they have a preference for multiple learning styles. The visual learning style can also be referred to as a graphic learning style. Visual does not necessarily mean pictures and videos unless there are visual cues or connections to the material and how to apply that. Some tools or methods that a visual learner may benefit from using or doing are visual plans, maps, or diagrams; visuals that allow the learner to see patterns. Learners may intentionally use space and design to create visual cues of importance. They may draw out ideas, methods, or connections. And notes may include different fonts, formats, and colors to indicate different levels of importance, or depending on how they categorize, what each of those might mean something different to the visual learner. Auditory learners process information through hearing things and talking about them. Lectures rely heavily on an auditory material delivery, but auditory learners can also use discussions, talking out loud about material to themselves or with others, radio or podcasts, recording notes and listening back to them, and or creating stories about the material. Another useful tool, especially with electronic textbooks, is allowing your computer or a screen reader to read that textbook to you while also reading along with it. For our folks who are auditory learners, that can be really beneficial because it is playing on some of that learning style that is your preference and works more so with your style than against it. Folks who prefer the reading or writing style might do really well with their textbooks, handouts, written notes, post-it notes, and lists. And this is the way that they are able to recall and retain information through reading, writing, and repetition. They're able to see more connections through categorization and creating hierarchies and using analyses, especially written ones. And so these are folks who might need to read it and then write it and then read it again and write it again, or review what they've already written. But this style relies pretty heavily on some of that repetition to be able to recall and retain that information. Kinesthetic learning is often referred to as hands-on learning, but it is heavily reliant on application and practice, which can also be theoretical in nature. Methods or tools for the kinesthetic learner can include using as many senses as possible, exploring case studies, using simulation or lab practice, learning through trial and error, using examples to understand the application of the material, or situational role plays. I think it's important to also know that the examples that are in your book are a form of kinesthetic learning delivery. And so by showing you a real-world example, it's really helping to engage that kinesthetic learning aspect of your brain and to provide some of that application that our kinesthetic learners really thrive using. Again, folks can have more than one learning style, but how they use those multiple learning styles and how that shows up in their life depends on what kind of multimodal learner they are. So Our friends who are VARK type 1, these are folks who are able to maybe switch back and forth between preferred learning styles depending on the work that they are doing. And they show a pretty high amount of flexibility. And so whether that is that they can really equally kind of use or lean into those learning styles, or that they're really depending on one over the other for certain things, it's really up to that learner. Our next style is VARK type 2, which are learners who have a high need or desire to engage with all of their preferred learning styles before mastery of that subject or, complete understanding has been reached. And so for those folks, it might take them longer to learn, but oftentimes their breadth of knowledge and the deepness that that knowledge goes is, is much more than your average learner because of how much time and by leveraging different strategies to learn that material. So they know it a little bit more holistically than maybe some folks who only relied on one learning style to fully comprehend or master the subject. So now you know a bit more about what learning styles are and some of the styles that folks use. Go to www.vark-learn.com/the-vark-questionnaire to complete the VARK Learning Style Assessment. When you are done, review your VARK Learning Style results. VARK will actually generate a report of suggested ways to use your learning style or styles in the classroom, at work, and to communicate with others, which gives you some really tangible things to do with these results. I want to thank you for joining us to learn more about learning styles and how you can leverage yours to maximize your learning. If you have any questions or suggestions, let us know at ozark.studentsuccess@atu.edu. And to explore more of our resources, visit us on the web at www.atu.edu/ozark/SSC. Thank you and have a wonderful day.